All right, how's everyone doing? I am Rich CELENZA. Thanks for tuning into the Rich CELENZA Show. WTF are you talking about? So what I'm going to call this podcast is Create Your Own Lifestyle. I don't think most people realize that they can actually create a life that they truly want to live. I think a lot of people have all these things regarding how everybody else's life is either better than theirs, or you have to be extremely rich, famous, I don't know, public figure, celebrity, businessman, or whatever the case may be, to live a great life. And I understand completely because I've had money at times. I've also been flat broke numerous times as well. I've been on both extremes. Having money is a lot better than being broke. I get that. And also having more money, you have the freedom to do a lot of things. But I'm also here to tell you a lot of times with money comes a lot of stress that a lot of people I don't think can handle. And a lot of people who make a lot of money work a lot. So even though you may see a lot of people living a certain lifestyle, including celebrities, it could be actors, musicians, or whatever, you see them maybe, I don't know, on social media maybe, living a certain life, and I get it may look great to you, but I can promise you a lot of times it's way more daunting than you think. And you can usually realize that later in life or as the years go by, a lot of people, what they look like physically and how they even end up mentally. So the one thing I kind of learned how to do later in life is really figure out what do I truly love to do and how do I make it work for myself regarding what I want to do in my life. Because I think a lot of times a lot of people can work 3 jobs or can just work as hard as they want or as they can to make as much money as they want. But again, what kind of life are you leading? Now, there are people out there that are, they could be anything from doctors to lawyers to, on Wall Street or whatever the case may be or whatever they do, make a lot of money and live a great lifestyle and have a great balance, and God bless. That's wonderful. But I think a majority of people out there don't have that much money or only make a certain amount of money. And a lot of people don't realize how they can make their life, one, a lot less stressful and truly kind of live the life they want to lead. And that doesn't mean that I'm telling you that not going for your dreams or not trying to make as much money as you want or be lazy or any of that. What I'm saying is if people learned how to do certain things the right way and really learn how to save money or be practical, I can't say frugal, but I guess frugal to a certain point, you could probably you could live a great life, a lot probably better than you think, just by making some small changes. One can even be your rent or your mortgage, maybe too high where your house poor. I see that with tons of people where basically you end up, I get you want to buy a big, beautiful house, and I've talked about this on podcasts before. But what is more important to you when you break it down? Did you always want to travel or did you always want a bigger house? And most people I talk to usually wanted to travel or experience different things in their life, but they locked into some huge mortgage because they wanted the big house. And before you know it, you got to always make improvements. Things are breaking down. And before you know it, they only thought they'd be spending X amount per month, and it's double that. And that's the same goes for cars a lot of times. A lot of people I see waste a lot of money on new cars when all they have to really do is get a used car or maybe even get a fixer-upper. Again, lower their car payment or maybe even, pay the car off a lot quicker. If you do these type of things, it will give you so much freedom. And I don't think people realize it. Everything you take a loan out on, I'd hate to say it, you become a slave to whatever you're purchasing. If you can't buy it outright. Now, that doesn't mean if you have an opportunity to buy property and you flip it and all these things. I'm not talking about that. That's business type stuff. I'm just talking about personal stuff to just lower, your stress and lower the expense that is constantly going out. And it also goes for clothes. I don't think people realize how much money they can save by buying resale or consignment shopping, or just going to outlets or finding clothes for sale. And I've shown people this, and you can't believe it. Now, you can also go online and find great deals. But if you can learn how to keep minimizing instead of, overspending, I should say, learning how to minimize compared to overspending, your life's going to change. And you will start living the life that you, I believe, want to lead to a certain point. Now, again, that doesn't mean if you get a smaller place or cheaper rent, you could go out and buy a Ferrari, or, you could travel all over the world or go on cruises. I'm not saying that. But I do think you'd be shocked you might be able to do that if you do things right and you do them for a certain amount of time. It just can't be like, I see a lot of people like, I'm going to save money or I'm going to change my lifestyle for 6 months to a year. And then before you know it, they're right back into, taking out loans that with certain interest rates, buying properties that they can't afford, or buying a boat, which again, if you want to buy a boat and that's what you love to do, God bless you. But again, buying a new boat or buying a used boat. I mean, that's a perfect example. You're way better off buying a used boat, I think. Now, again, you may be somebody who doesn't like used things. But until you can afford to really buy the new boat that you really can afford with a lot less stress, just go with a used boat. I'm telling you, boats are a dime a dozen. A lot of things in life that you're purchasing are just constantly depreciating, okay, most of the time. You just don't realize that. Now, your property, for instance, if you buy a home or something like that, that may appreciate or stay balanced, but if it depreciates, then the shit hits the fan. But most likely your cars are depreciating. The boats you're buying could be depreciating. I don't care if you're buying bicycles for cycling, they're probably depreciating. Almost all your clothes, I can assure you, even if you're buying them new, are depreciating. I mean, you could buy something, a shirt, as you know, for $50 or $80. Try to go resell it. It's worth $10. Especially cars, you pull off a new car off the lot, as you probably know, you lose probably about 30 to 40%. They're not going to tell you that. And just things like that. So if you can just figure out, again, the balance where I'm going to spend, I'm not going to get beat up when I buy a car. I'm actually, I'm going to actually save money on this. Or even if you want to get a vintage car, I know this sounds crazy that maybe if you can't outright buy them. But I always talk about, you may want to buy a car that appreciates in value instead of depreciates in value. That's kind of a smarter move, actually. And it's quite interesting because nobody will give you a loan unless maybe you have immaculate credit and you have things to offset it and collateral. But I find it quite interesting that banks won't loan usually people a car that's over 6 years old. They usually like 4 years or even newer. And you'll take a loan out on a newer car because I presume when they get it back, they want to make sure if they have to repo it. But they're giving you a loan on a car that's constantly depreciating. But you have vintage cars or other things in that nature, it could be a motorcycle, where if it's a collector's piece, that's appreciating in value. But a lot of times they won't give you a loan for that. But back to your lifestyle, a lot of us are living the life that we really are meant to live. And we don't want to accept that sometimes. And if you want to make changes, and I just did a podcast previously, then you are going to have to stop being lazy. And I find myself sometimes even being lazy. I'm not going to lie. I think everybody at times finds themselves lazy. But if you want to make changes in your life and start living a certain lifestyle, figure it out. Get creative. And I don't think a lot of people give themselves credit, because you could be a lot more creative than you think on ways to make money or on ways just to less. A lot of living your lifestyle, I would bet what I think a lot of people want is a stress-free lifestyle. But what happens with most people is they bring more stress into their life. They think by buying possessions, for instance, is going to give them freedom or is going to give them a certain type of identity or make them feel a lot better, which I think it does, but it's very short term. And you've probably been through that, where you're excited when you buy a nice new car, hypothetically, or you buy something new, and it's great for the first couple months. And like anything else, after 3-4 months, you're like, Jesus, I owe, 58 more payments on this thing, or I owe 40 more payments on this. Like, it's just another car. And that's what a home too. And I don't mean to dismiss things. A lot of times you may go in a home and be like, I'm going to fix it up. I'm going to do all these things. And before you know it, you're spending for one, you have the payments, and then you're spending so much money in the home, and then you have the stress of fixing it up, besides things breaking down, plus the improvements you want to make. And there could be a flood, there could be a hurricane, there could be a tornado. It's all these different types of things, insurance rates. Like, stress and like pressure, I think, is what really is the backbreaker. And I don't know how our country got so obsessed, I think, kind of keeping up with the Joneses. And that goes for credit cards as well. If you could just back those down, or just literally just use them almost in an emergency situation. Like, if even one Christmas, and I learned this with my kids too, in my life, we used to spend thousands upon thousands of dollars at Christmas time. Hold on one moment. Let me get some water. And I lived in Orlando, Florida, so we'd get Disney year tickets, our year passes for 4 of us. We'd get Universal Studios, Wet n Wild, SeaWorld. I don't even know sometimes for year passes. I'm not exaggerating. Back then, I'd blow, I don't even know, 5, 6, 7 grand. Who the hell knows? But at Christmas, even though I had money, you'd get hit with this big amount. And then I had my 2 daughters' birthday, once in November, once in January. So we're doing all these things. And then if you just took a break from one Christmas, like just telling everyone, hey, I'm getting you, we're just going to, as far as gifts goes, let's just do this and cut back a little bit, or even birthdays. Let's just make some changes here. Just holidays and some birthdays or whatever. If you're in a tight spot, just to get a little less stress, and maybe instead of spending all this money or getting in all this debt, paying off your credit cards during that time. And if you got younger kids, a lot of times, they don't even, could get whatever toys. And you're usually going to have grandparents and your other family members and friends giving tons of presents as well. I think we've all become a little obsessed with the holidays and birthdays, overspending. That goes for parties and all these things. But I'm just telling you, because I did that even with my daughter's baptisms. I mean, I spent thousands of pounds. I mean, I'd even fly to Chicago and I'd be downtown. I'd have massive parties. I goof around and say, if I just had the money I spent on parties, I can open a business. My mother used to scream at me, but it's true. But those are the things I'm talking about. And you'd be shocked, and just saying in 1 year, I'm going to start making these changes where I want to release the stress. And for the most part, I think, if you have physical, if you're hurt physically or you have setbacks regarding that, I get that. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking as far as stress goes for people on, the financial end. I think a lot of us just put ourselves in positions, and we don't look at it on the here and now, because we always think we're going to produce more later. And that's not always the case. What usually ends up happening is you take on more expenses as time goes on, not less. But you think you're going to always make more money to offset even those expenses. That's not necessarily true either. So you kind of got to be realistic. And my mother used to always say, save your money, save your money. And that's one thing I just thought I'd always make more money, or I'd always, be in different positions in my life. And a lot of that stuff didn't pan out the way I thought. And I finally had to realize what means the most to me. Like, even, I like being near water myself. So a lot of the places I live are on a lake. I'm not a boater, but I like being near there. So that doesn't mean I have to go out and buy a home for $1 million on a lake. You can find a townhome or even rent one much cheaper than buying $1 million home. And what if I like sea-dooing, I can go rent a Sea-Doo for the day. I don't have to purchase one and then maintain it and then again lose the value on it. And even a boat, you could go rent a boat a lot of times, right? And get your fill off that way. And there's a lot of things you can kind of do, like I was saying before. You don't have to always commit to purchasing things that are gonna basically put you in debt, and also a stress of every month having to pay. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't realize. So anyways, that's what I want to do this podcast about. You can live the lifestyle you want to live a lot more than you think. And if you do want to vacation more, study it. Even airlines, as you know, different times you can go, hotels, different times you can go. Your trip, you can spend $600 on a flight round trip ticket, $800, $1,000. Then all of a sudden you catch deals, for a couple $100. The trick to living your lifestyle to a certain degree is being more open. And when an opportunity comes, taking it, not being so strict on certain things. Now, I know if you have kids, that's a little harder to do. But again, if you don't have all these extra payments and that's extra stress, when a cheap airline ticket comes up, and says it's only available for this time, you're like, well, I can't do that because, I got to do this and all this, and I can't do that. I can't miss work. I have 2 jobs, or I got to make sure this. But by having some freedom, you'd be shocked the lifestyle you can lead. Because as far as responsibility goes, I know a lot of us have responsibilities. But I think a lot of us tie ourselves into more responsibilities now, more than ever, that we can handle. And again, I think as far as, like, say, my friends, they take on baseball, they're coaches and all that. God bless them, and I get that for parents. But a lot of people that aren't parents, or people that are either single or they're just dating, or even if they have kids again, and if you don't have the time, though, to coach your kids' team, or you want less stress, let somebody else take it on. My daughter once played 4 sports one year. I didn't coach any of them. I never wanted to be the coach. And the reason being is, and I always was asked to be a coach because I love sports and athletics, and I would be the one at every practice. But, pick her up, drop her off and stuff. But I never wanted that. For one, I didn't want to burn her out. But I also didn't want to always be responsible for an entire team, because I needed my time too to go work out. And sometimes I would drop her off at practice, or I'd make every game, but I would drop her off and that was my time to go work out. And I don't mean to be selfish about that. Or I would drop her off and go do whatever I had to do, sometimes in 2-hour increments or whatever the case may be. So that was just one thing I'm talking about. If I would have committed to everything that toward that, I would have had it's just an added part of stress. And I'm just using that for an example. But if you keep catching yourself constantly maybe helping too many people, which I'm all about helping people, or putting yourself out there where everybody is consuming your time, then how can you kind of live your life if you're kind of helping everyone live their own? So I'm going to wrap it up there. If you want, check out my YouTube channels. I've been doing a lot of things all over North America. I was in Hawaii. I got some videos there, California. I've been doing a lot of fitness stuff, trying to help people regarding getting in shape, staying in shape, doing videos, thinking more outside the box on what to deal with when not in the gym. And I'm also on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. So, yeah, I'm going to wrap it up here. But please, if you just stop, self-analyze your life and yourself. I always talk about self-analyzing yourself, but I don't think people a lot of times self-analyze their life. They don't also, and I get people don't want to hear about budgets and all that shit. I don't either a lot of times. But if you can structure something and say, you write it all down on a piece of paper one day, or figure out all your shit and say, really, what's more important to me? Like, doing what I'm doing now or doing what I want to do. Because a lot of us, I think, like I said before, in the first, year, 2 years, you're doing something at that point in time you want to do. But as time goes on, that may be something you don't want, or that you don't want to keep doing. So just something to think about. All right, take care, and I wish you nothing but the best.